Hello! It's not September, but that doesn't matter because there's this kind of, if I'm being honest, boring trend going around on YouTube where people rank things in a tier like fashion. And I was like, I can do that with the Greek gods. Staying on brand, let's do this. So I have the 12 Olympians plus Hestia, plus threw in Helios and Selene in there, and the most important god. We'll get to him last. I tried, when possible, to use my favorite artistic rendition of the gods. Most of them I couldn't because they are not monetization friendly, so I had to settle. I also did a pretty bad job cropping some of these images into their little circles. But minimal effort is what has gotten me like 3 days away from a classics degree. So, a quick note on the methodology of my rankings. You may be wondering, am I ranking these gods by like their power, by like their importance to ancient society, by like my if they're my favorite, or by like modern standards? The answer is, let's get started. Okay, so let's start with the numero uno god, the the king of the gods, Papa Daddy Zeus, and let's put him. Papa Daddy Zeus is kind of two things. He is a serial rapist and the king of the gods, and you kind of have to balance those two things. I'm gonna put Zeus into C list, honestly, because even setting aside his philandering ways, he's a powerhouse, but that's about it. He's very indecisive. He kind of just like sits around and other gods suggest stuff. Narratively, he's not as interesting as almost anyone else, and like thematically, he's just a terrible person. Although a Greek would probably get mad at me for saying that because I have blasphemed. Okay, let's go. Let's go to his good old wife. His good old wife, Hera. Which photo was Hera? I think this one was Hera. I did a bad job with these photos. Okay, so here's the deal. I think Hera gets a pretty bad rap most of the time. Sure, she pins the blame onto a lot of victims who probably don't deserve her wrath. But I feel like we read her through a very Zeus positive vibe most of the time. And she is, her domain is the state and marriage and royalty. She has some good stuff going for her. We would probably view her a little bit more positively if the Greeks had been more willing to make a story of her where she's not just getting mad at Zeus. Also, whenever she gets mad, it's for valid reasons. It's just how she reacts to it. So she's not the best. I'm not gonna say she's a good god, but we'll put her in a solid like B rank. She's like steady. She's definitely above Big Daddy Zeus. Okay, but let's hop over to our crowd favorite. Let's hop over to Athena. And Athena is clearly like S rank god. She is great in battle. She's smart. She only occasionally gets really petty with mortals. Like, the biggest tragedy of the Greek world is that Athena can't rule the gods because she would do just a much better job at it. Nike's her best friend, which is cool. She helps out Odysseus and Telemachus through all the Odyssey. She really carries them through that. So I think solid S ranking for Athena. Let's hop over to another one of my favorites, Poseidon. I like Poseidon a lot. I think he's narratively interesting, but he's definitely not as good as Athena. I'll put him in a solid A rank because like I think he still has a certain type of responsibility. He just, he tries to control things a little too much. He tries to rein stuff in, and he's bad at that. He usually like loses control. All of his monsters are children, He's the god of earthquakes. He can cause some pretty serious damage. Let's get the three brothers out of the way and just do Hades. And Hades is another A rank. He steals Persephone, but that's literally the only bad thing he does in mythology. And when it comes to the gods, sometimes you have to rank them by the amount of bad stuff they didn't do. This is Hephaestus. I really like his image. He's riding on a donkey. He's another solid B rank. He doesn't really do too much in myth. In fact, he feels a lot of times like the least important of the gods. He's just kind of there to get mad at Aphrodite. He does make a lot of cool stuff though, which is why, solid B rank. He does bring some stuff to the table, just not overall one of the more impactful gods. Let's do our boy Hermes. And Hermes, he pulls his weight. He does a lot of stuff. And he's the god of a lot of stuff. He's the giant slayer, which is a really cool title. However, he also causes a lot of problems. He's a little bit too much of a trickster. He's a little more immature than the other gods, but never in a terrible way. But I do think that pulls him down from an A rank to a B rank. And we haven't had a really bad god yet, so just to get someone on every tier, let's throw in Ares, or specifically, since this is a Roman sarcophagi depiction of him, Mars. He's just the worst. No one likes him. He is everything that's terrible with war. He's the exact opposite of Athena, so solid D ranking. Aphrodite is a really interesting goddess. She brings a lot to the table if you're just interested in exploring the purposes of the gods and their domains and their themes, and the lineage of the gods in the real world, seeing where they come from, which other gods they grew from. So she's really interesting. However, she does also cause a lot of problems in myth. She's a little vain, and she won't let Paris fight. Ooh, this is tough because also I'm balancing the Roman version of her, which is much more matriarchal and much more motherly. Yeah, let's go with a B ranking. She fulfills her role. She does certainly cause trouble, but who doesn't? Actually, this is a guy who doesn't. Helios, he doesn't cause much trouble. He just sails or rides his chariot across the sky. One time he let his son do it and almost burnt the earth. But, that was more his son's fault than his. I think he's a good god who doesn't get enough attention. Let's throw him up here with Athena. And to anyone who's he overreacted when Odysseus' men ate his cows. No, he didn't. Property is 9/10 of the law. It was probably 10/10 back in ancient Greece. So, he needed to protect his property. I really don't know who this person is anymore. I want to say that was Hera. It will come to me. But then who is that? That was Hestia. Okay. So let's put Hera here. Let's pull Hestia. Hestia is an A-level god. That story about her giving up her seat to Dionysus is a later invention, but just in general, she represents good things. S-level. I said A-level before. Dionysus is a guy who just likes to have a good time. He also has a lot of cool myths where he just wrecks people. And he has one of the best plays written about him, the Bacchae. So we've done Helios. We need to do Selene. Selene she transitions into Rome a little bit less smoothly than Helios. And even though that was not one of the reasons I put Helios at S, I think it's one of the reasons I need to knock down Selene down. Her story with Endymion is super interesting. And I think kind of reveals a nice double standard. So I can't put her too low, but I'll say she's an A-level person. Okay, so let's get to the twins, and we have Artemis. Artemis usually hangs out in the woods and turns people into stags, and lets their hounds eat them. But sometimes she does other things. Her concept is really cool. So it's hard for me not to put her too high. And I feel like I'm being a little too generous. I feel like I should have some people more low. But I can't quite do that with Artemis. So she's another A ranking. Apollo, however, I can, because Apollo is just a cocky little SOB. I don't really like him. He has a lot of cool attributes, music, prophecy, but I feel like he is the type of guy who is just constantly talking about how cool he is, to the point where it's like, sure, it's not true, but it does get annoying. So I'm gonna put him down with Zeus. Okay, Demeter, she really pulls her weight. She's another, oh no, not B rank. She's another S rank goddess. She pulls her weight. She really just gets upset when like Persephone gets kidnapped, which fair enough. And finally, the most important god, the Roman god of quarries and rocks, Saxenus, or as I like to call him because it's a pretty accurate translation, Rocky. There aren't really many pictures of Saxenus. In fact, I only know of one image of him, which I couldn't find on Google today, and I didn't have time to email my art history professor. So I just put up a picture of a rock because he's the rock god. And I believe that he is clearly the best god, to the point where like I kind of have to demote all other gods because they're not as cool as him. So sorry to Athena and Helios and Hestia and Demeter, but the S rank stands for Saxenus. They're my very stupid and dumb rankings of the Greek gods. The end.